We live in a modern world. I can look on my cell phone right now and tell you headlines from around the globe. I can tell you the current stocks, even though it's probably way too early in the morning for that. I can even tell you copious amounts of information through the internet. The question is, however, how do we provide our students with this valuable tool called internet and technology that is such a valuable tool already in our workforce, in our school systems? Well, that big, broad question all boils down to this, and that is, who will pay? My colleagues Zach Reinhold, Gareth Norris, and I are here to provide you, hopefully, with an answer to this complicated equation. Let's look at some of the possibilities.
The school pays. It results in higher taxes and the isolation of citizens who can't afford to live in these communities. If the parents pay and can't afford the technology, we see bullying and social issues result, as well as the students not being able to do all the work in class. So how can we prevent these two competing social problems? Is there a way that we can provide for our community while providing for our children's education? Let's look at the facts.
In case you're wondering, the definition of socioeconomic is of relating to or involving a combination of social and economic factors. And the definition of spectrum is used to classify something or suggest that it can be classified in terms of its position between two extreme or opposite points.
It may be surprising, but within the United States, almost 5%, 2.5 million children are homeless. Of these children, nearly 1.3 million of them are going to public schools.
Also, 1/5 of kids going to public school live in poverty, reaching a total of 11 million children. Many of these students who are living in poverty are facing problems within their own school. Schools nowadays are implementing techniques called BYOD.
So how can schools balance out the equation and close the gap between education and poverty? Here is step 1.
Hello, and welcome to BYOD in Peel. In global communities that are linked so closely through the internet, it's critical that we provide our students and our staff with the tools they need to build 21st century learning skills. It's a well-accepted point of view that only schools that normalize the use of technology in everyday teaching will be able to meet society's ever-growing and more sophisticated expectations.
BYOD, or bring your own device, is a phrase that's become widely adopted to refer to employees who bring their own computing devices, such as smartphones, laptops, and PDAs, to the workplace for use in connectivity on the secure and corporate network. This phrase can also be used to describe students who bring the technology to class.
Instead of BYOD, however, richer communities have started to use one-to-one.
One-to-one is when the school issues the students and teachers with their own device. The students pay for extra taxes, and thus everyone in the school gets equal devices for them all to use. This would result in all of the students having the same device available for unlimited personal usage. BYOD and one-to-one both have amazing benefits, but let's take a first-hand look at those as we revisit Peel School District.
BYOD model, when combined with the right pedagogy and when used responsibly, offers many significant benefits to the learning environment.
So if you don't have your own device, please come up to the card and grab a device for our test.
BYOD tends to significantly increase access to technology in the classroom. The reality is many students have devices that are more current, powerful, and flexible than those offered in their schools. BYOD provides access to content that is current, relevant, and often more engaging and interactive.
However, many schools are not implementing one-to-one due to its higher expenses. These schools have instead turned to classic BYOD, where these schools will try to force their students to purchase their own laptops or iPads, which is detrimental to those who live under or near the poverty line.
For example, for a family of 4, it would cost an astonishing $6,400 for a yearly plan, as well as extra expenses to pay for devices for everyone in the family. This can reach up to 1/4 of that impoverished family's yearly income.
However, there are a few instances where BYOD was a successful program, one of which took place here in Avon Lake, Ohio. BYOD was successful here because their administration was able to supplement laptops and other devices for students who could not afford them on their own. It wasn't one-to-one because they weren't purchasing, the school wasn't purchasing the devices and giving them to the students, but instead the schools were aiding those students who could not afford them and helping them keep up with the rest of the class technologically.
Another place that successfully followed BYOD was Chesapeake Public Schools. They followed BYOD in a different manner.
Their strategy was that they all had their students sign consent forms, which allowed for more maneuverability with devices. This extra maneuverability would allow for students to bring in a greater variety of electronics, such as cell phones and tablets and laptops. This helped the problem slightly because students could bring in devices that they understood. Since students were able to bring in devices that they understood, they could pay less attention to the actual device that they were using and how to use it, and more to the work that they were producing in the classroom.
However, poorer students still could not afford good devices. That was still the major problem. This is a problem today because those kids with bad devices get harassed. It was like a few years ago, when whoever had the cheapest car or the cheapest clothes would get made fun of. This is a major problem because people could easily cyberbully students for having poor devices.
Charlie Osborne, a writer for iGeneration and ZDNet, said, "Forget about being teased for clothing choices. Now, perhaps it is because the child cannot afford the next-gen iPad, or the phone they have is only an old Nokia."
Perhaps the most startling statistic when discussing social issues and technology is that 3 in 20 kids have been cyberbullied. Eric Scheninger, a senior fellow at the International Center for Leadership and Education, tells us that there are many well-respected educators that he greatly admires who feel that BYOD has no place in schools. Their main reasons for this are equity in terms of students that have devices and the belief that it is each district's responsibility to provide all the technology to be used by students in that school.
The federal government launched the StopBullying.gov website, which is managed by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. According to the federal website, students who are bullied may have a higher risk of depression and anxiety that can follow them into adulthood. They also may be more likely to miss or drop out of school, and in 12 of 15 shootings in the 1990s, the shooters have been bullied.
However, places are also trying to fix this. For example, a school district named Paramus in New Jersey approved an $84.9 million budget to help fund mainly new programs, including BYOD. This school is spending plenty of that cash to help those poorer students who are financially in need.
Therefore, schools like Paramus that encourage financial support with technology will become more popular with poorer families. Many of these poorer families were benefited by programs through schools that help to financially support those who are in need.
However, no matter how many poor families get benefited from these schools and their financial aids, there will always be those families who have more difficulties than others. For those families that BYOD just doesn't seem like a plausible option, it is recommended that the school take a much more flexible approach.
They can create things such as computer labs, mobile computer carts, as well as many other options, where every single student has access to the exact same technology at all times the school is open.
Along with creating computer labs and computer carts, schools should simultaneously allow BYOD with its students. By doing both of these, it allows students to have a much more complete access to the technology that many of them need to complete projects and homework, while at the same time allowing them to use their own devices if they prefer to do so.
In order to prevent any single student having an unfair advantage in the educational system, schools must provide their students with technology, whether it is giving them a personal laptop for them to use for all 4 years of high school, or something as simple as having a computer lab available during all school hours for students and staff. This would allow for those less fortunate students to have an equal opportunity at getting an education as the rest of the students, because all students deserve their chance at a proper education. Without a proper education, today's students will not be ready for tomorrow's world, and thus their kids would face the same problems.
Thank you.